I thought we were a bit ahead in the share, so I thought for this week we do a bit of a Chazarah. Okay, so we're going to do sort of a quick Chazarah as far as we get. So we're going to start from the very beginning of Demai Chazarah Daf. So we mentioned various types of species where you didn't have to meiser them when there were Demai. Remember the jujubes and the azarols and various types of sycamore figs and fennel and caper and so on. And in Yehuda, actually, these were things following the sumac and the various types of vinegar that was made from some grape seeds and coriander. And Rabbi Yehuda said all of these shitin, we said all these types of jujubes and so on, they're all potter except the diafra, the ones that produce fruit twice a year. And the rimin are all potter except the ones that come from shikmona. And all the banos shikmona, they're all potter apart from the ones which take a long time to ripen. Right? They ripen on the tree until they sort of crack open. So Rabbi Yachon said basically these species, they were always hefker mainly, so they were part of Maestros. Rish Lakish said not only when we said we're lenient with these things when they're demai, and you get them from Nama Oretz, we don't even take mice or not, but even vadai definite tevel, yeah? When they are vadai tevel, then definitely they are chayav maestros. But Rabbi Yochanan argued. He said, no, there's no difference whether it's demai, whether it's vadai. It's completely possible. Now, on Rabbi Yochanan, we mentioned these things that they are demai, they're part of a maestros. So the inference is that if they're teva, they would be chayav. So Rabbi said, no. Basically, in every place, we only talk about demai. Here in our Masechet, we're talking about demai, right? Therefore, so here in our Mishnah, we want to tell you the main din on demai, but the truth is the din would apply to teva, which is definite as well. And the Rabbi brings a proof for this. Support to Rabbi Yochanan, where it says from Kaziv. Now, in the place of Kaziv and onwards, you're passing from Demai, because that didn't have the Kedusha when they went from Bavel. Now, is there any difference in Kaziv between Demai and Vadai? There's no difference. Basically, they're not Chaim Maestros at all. And yet the Mishnah said the din as far as Demai is concerned. So it's anything in our Mishnah, although the Mishnah mentions Demai, but really there's no difference between Demai and Vadai, right? Now, then the Gemara wants to bring a question on Rish Lakish, because it says, if some of these things, we've learned in a brisa actually, if some of these species were guarded, so they weren't hefker, you would be chayav b'maestros. Now, surely these things are coming from hefker, so how can it be that they're guarded? It must be you saw that the seller maybe is gathering them from a guarded tree, and you know that he didn't take meiser, and they're proper tevel, and the brisa still said we know they were guarded. The problem is because we know they were guarded. So you see, even tevel vadai, they're not chayav unless we know that they are guarded. But usually you would say you're potter, and that's like the view of Rabbi Yochanan. So that's a question of Rish Lakish. So turning to Daf base, so the Gemara answers, you got to follow if most people over there guard these fruits, right? So because most people guard it, so that's why that din is like that. Then the Gemara says, now, where would be an argument then between Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan? So if most people guard these fruits, then of course everyone says these fruits is chayav maestros, whether it's demai or tevel. If most people don't guard it, then according to everyone they're going to be potter from maestros, whether it's demai or tevel. If it's half-half, we don't know what the custom is, that's the way they're learning, then we can't really explain that. I mean, if we don't know if people guard it or not, then we've learned mersa, then we treat it as demai, and you have to take meiser. So the moral answer is the truth is we could put the case in the situation of half-half, and it's slightly different to the case in Machshirin. He says, Rav Zeira said, we're not talking about a kalim, we're not only talking about the lenient things in Demai, but even Demai Atzmai. That means normal species, which are important. They're not easy hefker stuff, right? We're talking about normal produce. And that's why the Mishnah wasn't lenient in the case of half-half, because you can't really be lenient. But our Mishnah, the Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, is minim akalim, right? There's special reasons why we can be lenient half-half, right? And we can say that's the argument between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Okay, so we spoke about the minim akalim, got a doubt if most people guard it or not. You've got machlokes. Now what about fruits from more normal species where you've got a suffix? If most people guard them or not. So if you go into a town where they're mainly going, okay, and you buy fruit, and you don't know if most people guard this species or most people don't, well, definitely you should be potter from maestros, right? Whether it's demai or vadai, because most people in the town are going. Now, if you go into a town where they're mainly Jewish people, you buy fruit, and you have a doubt, is it most people guarding, most people not guarding, then everyone holds you're Chaim Maestros, whether it's Demai, whether it's Vadai. If you go in a town where it might be most of Goyim, or it might be most of the Jewish people, and you buy fruit, and you've got a doubt, is it most people guarding, most people not guarding? That's Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Okay? According to Rabbi Yochanan, it could be lenient and pata, and according to, because you've got different doubts and so on, it might be coming from a guy, or maybe it's Hefka, and according to Reish Lakish, the Chachamim were machmir with Maestros. They weren't lenient even with different doubts. Okay. So we're on base now, yeah? So just doing the summary, yeah? Now we said shittin, types of azarols and things are potter from Demai. What are they? So he said these are the figs which are coming, they produce them under the leaves. Okay. The figs that ripen early and the ones that are delayed in ripening, they are potter from Maestros. What about kiros? These are the ones that ripen before you have a guard to guard the fruit. So they're considered hefka. Okay? Now, does it depend on a guard? So Rabbi says no. When there's not enough for you to bother to get a guard, basically, they're potter, there's not enough for you to bother paying for a guard. What are the mesuyafos? These are the ones where the people have put away their knives for next season, right? And after they put away their knives, any fruit that then ripens after this time, they are left and they are considered hefka. Rabbi said the name of Rabbi Lazar. The Bakiras, they are Chaim Maestros because they are Chazaka, that probably they are guarded. You get them together with other produce. Rabbi Ben Chavuz said no. He said the Shittin and Sipirin, they are liable for Maestros because you expect them to be guarded. If the owners have finished cutting their figs and you've got these Suyofos ones left and you're guarding your field, let's say because of the grapes, which have not yet been cut, or maybe the grapes have been finished, but you're guarding your field because of the vegetables. Well, if the worker goes in to deal with all the produce, and while he's there, he might eat from the figs or eat from the grapes, then, and the balabais is particular, oh, why have you eaten it? Then they're awesome shum gezel. You're not allowed to eat from them. And we bring a story, Ula, by Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan, they went to eat these delayed fruit. The guard screamed at them. Rabbi Yehuda therefore stopped eating. The Rabbi said, no, you can eat. The owner's given up. Rabbi Yochanan said, wait a minute, the guard is screaming. You tell me the owner's given up? So Rabbi Yochanan said, well, Rabbi Yochanan's right. I mean, surely you shouldn't eat from it. But we've got a Mishnah, actually, in Maestros, which seems to argue Rabbi Yochanan. It says about various types of hyssop and various types of plant life, which grow wild, which have grown on their own accord in a courtyard, and if they're guarded, they're liable. It says the courtyard, whereas if they grow in a garden, even though they're guarded, they are potter from Maisa. So you see, these things are not so significant. They grow in a garden, they're hefka, even if it's guarded. So the story of a Rabbi, these things grow in a field, which is like a vegetable garden, we should treat it as hefka. And it shouldn't be a problem eating it. And it's a problem with Rabbi Yochanan, who said, oh, if they're guarded, they're also. So the Gemara answers, those plants which grow in this garden, the person can say, look, why take from my garden, right? Take from elsewhere. Why do you have to come and take from my garden? Whereas here, these late arriving produce, the owner of the guard can say, look, I only have one basket here. Please leave me alone. Right? You don't find them everywhere. They don't find them everywhere. And even my quantity is only a small amount. And I'm guarding it for my worker, to give my worker when he works in my field. And since people do that, therefore it's not considered hefka. Okay? We're Novelos had tomorrow, so we now end up Gimel Ahmed Aleph, yeah? We've learned, as Yehuda said, these Novelos, so these are types of fruit which are sold with dates. They are chayev. They are liable for maestros because you sell them, these late dates, together with, you're selling them with dates. So there's types of dates, but they're sold with these normal dates. So they are chayev maestros because the owner can sell them together with the other dates, right? So they're not going to be hefka. Now, what are we talking about? Now, where are they, these other dates, these not so good ones? Are they in two boxes, one next to the proper dates, or one box on top of the other box? Where are they? So the truth is there's no difference, right? Whether it's the one box next to the other or one box on top of the other, right? What we're talking about Merobos, they're all mixed up. Now, what happened with these dates, these novelos? Have they already ripened? Have they swollen up already? Well, they haven't swollen up. Rabbi said that we're talking about the ones that have swollen up. Right? If they're swollen up, then they should be chayev maestros in their own right. So the Gemara says, no, you can't say that they are sold on their own, they're Chaim Maestros. Because Rabbi Yochanan said most of these types, they don't really come from Hefker. So basically the Chachamim say, they mention them as being potter from Maestros. So these nobles in our Mishnah, even if they reach a stage of Einus and Maestros, they're potter if they're sold on their own, because they usually come from Hefker. That's the thing, right? Rav Hanina said, no, they haven't swollen up. But if they're not swollen up, then even if they're mixed up with the normal dates, then they should be potter because they're not reached Einus and Maestros. So my answer is, you can't say they're mixed up, they're potter because they haven't reached Einus and Maestros, because we've learned in a Bryce from Yishmael, he said the name of his father, he said that even like one grape from a whole cluster, if it reached that stage of Maestros, the whole thing is connected from Maestros. Okay, because it's a chibur, it's all connected to that one grape. So the same thing here. If you mix these dates with the novelos, which are these bad quality ones, they're all considered connected. And it's all considered reaching Einus and Maestros, and that's why Rabbi says that the chib Maestros. Okay? Whereas Rabun said, Rav Zira, Rav Hila, he said one said like Ramana, one said like Rav Hanina, and the Chachamim said, we're up to Daf Gimel on the base. Yeah, the Chachamim said, not like the Tanna Mishnah who patters the novelos from any Maestros, and not like Rabbi Yossi who makes a distinction if they're sold on their own or not. But if they've swollen, hitilus or as it were, then they're sold in their own right, they're liable, and they're not swollen, then they are potter. Okay. We mentioned Gufnan, which is Shumira. Now, we are lenient with certain things. Yehuda in Galil, maybe only in Galil. So they say a parable in Galil with this Shumira, right? They call it here Shumira. They say a parable that Shumira, its taste is bitter. Now, what would you put with the spices? What compares you with the spices? So it's not really fitting to be a spice, you see. That was said in Galil, not in Yehuda. Basically, what that tells me is that this Shumira in Galil was not a spice of any importance. Therefore, it was Kalin Demai. Therefore, it didn't have any Chib Maestros, and it was Potter. Whereas in Yehuda, it wasn't considered a lenient one, and it was Chayiv, it was liable. Okay? And in Yehuda, we mentioned Kusbara, which is perhaps coriander, and Kusbata. Where is this din that we're lenient with coriander? Is it in Yehuda, in Galil? Again, there's a parable in the south, which is in Yehuda. Like, who compares you with the spices? Basically, it tells me in Galil you're Chayav Maestros, in Yehuda you're Potter. We mentioned vinegar in Yehuda is also one of the Kalin Shavadmai, which is Potter from Maestros. Rabbi Yehuda said in the beginning, the vinegar in Yehuda was Potter from Maestros because they made wine in a state of purity from the Nesachim, and there was never any vinegar. Right? It wouldn't be machmitz, and they would bring vinegar from Temed, basically by soaking the grapes and so on, and therefore usually these grape seeds are all hefker, but the vinegar would come as potter from Maestros. But now we don't have the base mikdash, and the wine does go sour, therefore the vinegar is chayav Maestros, because the wine comes from what was chayav Maestros. Okay? We have a contradiction in Rabbi Yehuda. We've learnt in Maestros, if you make a juice with these grape seeds, we have not taken Maisa, and you add water, and you've got the same amount measure, then you measure the whole thing, and you find exactly the same measure as what you had before, you're potter from Maestros, because it's water, it's not wine. And Rabbi Yehuda is Mechayev, you have to separate Maestros. So he says we treat it as vinegar, and you have to separate Maestros, even though it's the same amount. In our Brisa, which we brought, he says Temed, this sort of vinegar, is potter from Maestros. So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Law gives an answer. And when the Beis Mikdash was around and the grapes were many and there was a lot of wine, they didn't need this temed to drink. Therefore, the grape seeds and so on were not significant. It was hefka. If you made temed, you're potter from Maestros, right? But now, where the grapes aren't so many and the chasanim, the grape seeds are insignificant, they're not hefka. Therefore, if you make a temed, you make a juice out of it, you're chayav Maestros. Yeah. Rav Huna said the name of Yerushalmi. He asked. Now this seems to go this price against Rish Lakish. Because the Bryce seems to say the vinegar in Yehuda is one of the minim akalim, is potter for Maestros, even though it's tevel. And Rish Lakish held that the minim akalim are potter only when it's Demai, not when it's tevel. Very good question. The Gemara does not answer it. Now, we spoke about the rimin. The rimin, various the jujubes are potter from Maestros, apart from the ones from Shikmoina, which are chayav in Maestros. Now, why don't we say that you've got a majority of all the rimin elsewhere on the Shikma one? There should be bottom arrive, which will be potter. So Rabbi Yossi answered, we're talking about a case where most people guard them, right? In Shikmaina, most people guard them, and since the ones in Shikmaina, they're acquired, and you were bought there actually, they were acquired in Shikmoina, the place where most people guarded. So that's where they were acquired. That's what we're talking about. They probably grew there, and therefore the Chai for Maestros. Now, Rabbi, he says, wait a minute, you got the whole world out there. You went and bought it there, but you could have bought it anywhere. Right? You're telling me most people buy there. Most people, they come from all over the place. So all the ones all over the place should be much more than the ones in this little place. A very good question. We have no answer. Demai. Right? Now, halacha base, yeah? So Demai, there's no din. Masechet, which you separate from Demai, you don't have to add a fifth. And there's no din biur. You're not chayav biur maestros. And the Einan can eat it, as opposed to normal Masechet. And it goes into Yerushalmi, and it can come out again. And you can redeem it outside Yerushalmi. And you can... So you can, if you've got a bit to throw away, you don't have to worry if a bit gets lost on the way. You can give it Masechet of Demai to Amaretz, and he will take the money and he'll have it in Yerushalmi. And you can eat a corresponding amount with Kedushas Masechet. So you give a bit to him and you eat a corresponding amount. Okay? And you can redeem it even silver on silver, right? And copper on copper. You can redeem it onto the same coin. Normally you have to go up a stage. Here you can redeem it on the same. So this is Masechet of Demai. Yeah? Now also, you can be Machala Masechet of Demai with coins of copper. Copper on fruit. Provided you go and redeem the fruit. And you don't have to take this fruit themselves to Yerushalmi. Which remember, the Chacham said, no, you should take the fruit to Yerushalmi and eat it in Yerushalmi and don't redeem it. Now, Yochanan Kohen Gadol was the one, he removed the idea of saying vidui. So we suppose that means you don't have to be mavai, you don't have to get rid of the maestros, because that's part of the vidui. So the answer is no. He removed them, you don't say vidui, but you still have to do the biur. You still have to get rid of the maestros in your domain, right? Even after the takana. But that's only with Masechet on Vadai, but when it comes to Demai, you don't have to get rid of it. Now, we said it can be eaten by an Einan, it can be eaten in a state of aninus. Can't be eaten in a state of impurity. Now, what's the difference between aninus and impurity? So Rav Nachman said, well, tumah is very common. Aninus is not common. So there's a gezerah on something which is not common, but they didn't put a gezerah on something which is not. Sorry, there's a gezerah on something which is common, but not a gezerah on something which is not common. So aninus, you can't have Masechet of Demai, whereas, around it, aninus, you can have Masechet of Demai, and in states of tumah, you can't have Masechet of Demai, right? Rabbi Yossi said even Safek Tevel, it didn't treat it. Because Safek didn't treat it as bad as Safek Tevel. Safek Tevel, you don't know if it was Niskal, if that Tevel has been corrected, then Masechet has been taken, or maybe not. You don't know. Maybe, an Einan should be also to it. It should definitely be also. Safek Deraisa L'Chumra. Whereas here in our mission, we say Demai, and the Einan is allowed to have it. So we see we're not machmir with Demai, even if you're not treating it as Safek Tevel Deraisa. Because Me'ekah did, we can rely on the fact that most Amei Haaretz separated Maisa, right? The whole idea of Demai was the odd occasion when they didn't, okay? Now we've learnt another din, that Demai has got no din of a fifth. Elsewhere we've learnt Truma and Trumas Masa and Trumas Masa of Demai. If a Zar eats it, you have to pay Keren B'chaimesh. Here in our Mishnah we say Demai is potter from B'chaimesh. So Rabbi Zira said the answer, there, we've learned Trumas Masa Shel Demai, there were machmir, that you eat it, you have to pay a chaimesh. But here, so there's Trumas Masa of Demai, here it's Masechet of Demai. Right? Masechet of Demai, you're potter from the fifth. Rav Imi said, well, the Mishnah seems to be talking about Trumas Masa of Demai. The Mashmah says we're also talking about, you're saying that bit is different, but it sounds like that's what we're talking about. But there's still no contradiction, because over there, where the Mishnah says you have to pay a fifth, that's Rav Meir's view. Whereas our Mishnah, which patters the fifth, is the Rabbanon's view. Rav Zira said the name Rabbanon. The truth is, Trumas Masa Demai, a Zah who eats it shouldn't really have to separate a fifth. Because the Chiz is only Rabbanon, so you shouldn't really be Machmir. But why do they say you should separate a fifth? So to make a Geder, to make a fence. If I tell me that you don't have to separate a fifth, you'll be Mezalzel, you won't treat it with holiness at all, right? Now, the truth is, now Rav Zira wants to say why they weren't machmir with Masechet of Pidyon of Demai to obligate a fifth, for the same reason. He says Masechet of Demai, if you separate, really you should separate a fifth, but they said don't separate it. Why? To make a Geder, because if you're going to tell me you have to separate a fifth, you're not going to separate the Masechet in the first place. Remember, it's Masechet of Demai, you won't bother. Therefore they said, you know what? You don't have to add a fifth. Rabbi Bud Bachia asked before Rabbi Law, I mean, why did the Mishnah mention this din with Demai? I mean, even Vadai. And why mention the Mishnah that it's a small amount? You know, it says we can lose a small amount on the way. So that didn't be even with Vadai. And why is it only a meal? It's a small amount. Even a lot. Now, we've learned in a Brisa, in Trumas, you can't bring Truma from the Gairen to the town to give it to a Kohen, not from the midbar to the Yishuv, unless you had a place where the animals were going to take it, there was animals there, you have to move it, then you can move it into the town to give to the Kohen, and you're allowed to take money from the Shevet, from the Kohen, for your expenses, for the logistics. And we see in the Brisa that if there was no animals, then you can just leave it where it is, even though at the end, the Truma will end up being destroyed, and even definite Truma, and even though there's a big amount. And yet our Mishnah gives you an allowance to destroy with Demai and a small amount. But we're saying even a big amount and Truma you can. So the Gemara answers, Amalei, so Rabbi answered, he said, wait a minute, you surely have to return lost items to the owner. Okay? So here as well, surely you should return it to a Kohen. And Mishnah's also about that. That's why it has to tell you that Trumas Maser Demai, you don't have to take it to a Kohen. Rabbi Yosi said, yeah, you're mitzvah to return a lost item. That's when it's small amounts, you know. You're not mitzvah to take a big heavy thing and a vadai. Maybe only with vadai stuff you have to do it, but not with demai. You're not commanded to return a lost item when it's demai. Right? You're allowed to destroy a bit on the way and so on. Now the Gemara understood that the din ma'abdin es miyuta, you know, you can destroy a little bit, is about trumas maser or demai. So the question was asked, it's all very well, you can destroy a little bit of maser sheni of demai, when let's say you haven't got money to redeem it. If you had money, what was the din then? So Nechum Rechia said, my father went on the way, he had money, and even so, he was not machalal. Right? He left it to go to waste. This maser sheni of demai, he just left it to go to waste. Now Rabbi Chia Baba, what he did, that he left the maser sheni to go to waste, was like Rabbi Zeira, who said, if you who explained that Mishnah is talking about maser sheni of demai, and that you have a leniency, you can throw away a bit, and it's talking about maser sheni of demai. Whereas Rav Law, who said, he explained the question from the Mishnah of the Brisa like Rav Imi, he said the Mishnah is talking about trumas maser of demai, and the Mishnah allows you to destroy trumas maser of demai in only a small amount, so he had a problem from the Brisa. The Brisa allows you to destroy even a big amount of truma. So he needed Rav Law's answer, but according to Rav Zeira, who explained talking about maser sheni of demai, the question didn't start, because even though as far as truma, they allowed you to destroy even a big amount, vada and a lot, but it could be maser sheni, they didn't allow you to the same extent. They only allowed you to destroy a demai bit and only a small bit. And Rabbi Yanai, they said that less than an eichel, like less than an egg, you're allowed to destroy. You're carrying it, you're allowed to destroy it on the way, and that's only when it's a broken piece, which has been broken from a loaf. But a whole piece, a whole loaf, then agagregres until the value of a dried fig. Rabbi Yochanan said, with a whole loaf, the amount you can destroy is till gregres, and if it's broken, even a lot more, even more than an egg, you can destroy it. Now, are they arguing? Shramana said no, but this is what they're arguing. Rabbi Yanai said, if it's less than a kibetza, you can destroy it if it's broken. But if it's a whole piece, it's got to be a gregres, until a gregres, which is smaller. Rabbi Yochanan said, whether it's a broken piece or a whole piece, only until a fig, and that's it. So Rabbi Yochanan is being machmir from what Rabbi Yanai said. He said even a broken piece only until a fig and not more than that. Rabbi Shia asked, what about being mafresh, maser sheni of demai, a tiny bit and destroying it? I mean, maybe they only allowed you to destroy it b'di'eved, right? There's already a small bit left over between mafresh lechatchila and then destroy it. We don't have an answer to that. Okay, then the Mishnah said you can give it to Amaretz and you can eat a corresponding amount. And that's talking about Demai, maser sheni of Demai, but with maser sheni vadai, you can't do that. You can't give that to an Amaretz, right? You can't give over to vadai to an Amaretz. Okay, halacha gimel. Now, when you are buying from Amaretz fruit for sowing, or for an animal to eat, or flour for tanning skins, or oil to light candles, or oil to anoint vessels, in all these cases, you're a person who buys it as potter from Demai, right? Because there was no Gzera Demai unless it's bought for eating and not for other purposes. Now, all the places from Kaziv and onwards, if you buy fruit, you're potter from Demai, because these places were not holy when they went from Golos Bavel, okay? And therefore, they're not having a clear of Maestros. Chalas Amaretz, we're on Dav Zayin with Aleph now. Chalas Amaretz, a challah which is being separated from the dough of an Amaretz, and if it's mixed up with truma and become meduma, or if you bought it with kesef maser, fruits that was bought from Amaretz with maser sheni money, and leftovers of menachas which an Amaretz brought are potter from Demai. So we've got a few things where an Amaretz is very careful, right? So what we got the list is meduma, or you bought something maser sheni money, or leftovers of a mincha, or challah, the challah that was separated from a dough and Amaretz, they're all potter from Demai, and oil of Demai, which is mixed with besamim, which is potter from Maser. Beis Shammai obligate you to separate it Demai, and Beis Hillel do not obligate. Now, we said if you buy things for sowing, yeah? Now, there's no difference whether the seeds disintegrate. You buy it for eating, therefore there's a chiyuv of peiros to Demai. Then you change your mind, you're going to sow it, you don't have the ability to change that and therefore take away your obligation. Right? We've learned you shouldn't sow tebel and you shouldn't cover over seeds of tebel with bits of earth, but you can do it with a guy, seeds of tebel belonging to the guy. If you forgot and you did sow seeds of tebel, you don't have to take meiser because it was already destroyed through sowing. And that's all very well, where it's some of the sort of seeds which are not gathered easily after you sow it. So things which are gathered easily, then there's a knas, and then we do tell you, gather it up and take meiser on it. Now, that's all very well if it's not yet sprouted. If it's already sprouted, then it's like something which you can't really gather up. Rav Yochanan, when he would eat food which he got from Amaretz, even meat, even eggs, he would take meiser first. So the Talmidim said, but didn't you teach us, Tavua Zarach, you don't have to take meiser on meat and eggs. So he said he was worried for any liquids they were cooked in, like wine or whatever, they might be absorbed into it. Right? Then we said if you take seeds for animals, you're potter from Demai, right? Rav Yirmiyah said to Rav Zeira a basket of figs which had not had meiser taken. Rav Yirmiyah thought, well, Rav Zeira will definitely take meiser before he eats it. Rav Zeira thought, surely Rav Yirmiyah would have taken the meiser before he sent it to me. And in the end, the tebel was eaten and the meiser had not been taken. The next day, Rav Zira meets up with Rav Yirmiyah. He says, you know that basket you sent me? It was meiser, wasn't it? He said, no, I didn't take meiser on it. I thought, Rav Zira, surely you'll take meiser before you eat it. So Rav Zira said, well, I thought you must have taken meiser before you sent it to me. Now, Rav Abba Bazvina said the name of Zira. He says, if we were like angels, we would be like people. If we were like people, we're not the donkeys of. We're like donkeys. For what they are, we are like donkeys. Ramana said at that time, they said we're not even at the level of the donkey of Rav Pinchas ben Yair. Right? Remember the story of Rav Pinchas ben Yair. The Yerushalmi's version of the story is that there was a donkey. Rav Pinchas ben Yair was stolen, and he refused to eat for 3 days. He didn't eat anything. For 3 days. After 3 days, the Gadovim said, look, we better give it back. It's going to just die here. So they send it back. Rav Pinchas ben Yair asked the people looking after the donkey now, no, have you prepared the food for it? Did you separate things? And they thought he meant, did you take the pebbles out? They said, yeah, we've taken the pebbles out. He said, no, I don't mean that. Did you take meiser on what he eats? So he says, no, we didn't. So they did that. So they separated the meiser, and that way the donkey was able to eat something. Now, they said, well, surely you don't have to take meiser. It's for animals. He says, no, this is different. This animal has not eaten anything for 3 days. It's machmir. We said in the shir how the donkey was a gilgul of Yishmael. Yishmael had stolen in the past and therefore had to correct by not taking even food which hadn't had meiser taken. So they separated everything. There was another 2 stories with Rav Pinchas ben Yair. We had 2 poor people who gave a saw of barley to Rav Pinchas ben Yair to look after. He sowed them, and they came back 7 years later, and he gave them a big bundle of what all had grown from all the things that he'd sown for them. And Rav Pinchas ben Yair went to a town. They went in, they said, the mice are eating all the grain. He put a decree on the mice, and he gathered them in one place, and they started whistling. He said to them, what are you doing? Do you know what you're saying? Do you know what we're saying? They said, no. He said, they're saying that Rav Pinchas ben Yair told the people, these people are not taking proper meiser. and that's why the mice are eating everything. So he said, okay, you guarantee us for now, and we'll do things properly. And sure enough, after that, everything changed. We have another story from Malka Sokaya. A jewel fell down, and one of the mice swallowed it up. They didn't know which one. They go to Rabbi Ben Yai, says, you think I'm a wizard? They're going to help you out. They said, oh, I've heard about your good name. So he puts a decree and gathers them all in one place, and he finds one a bit swollen more than the others. He said, that's where it is. He put a decree, and it swallowed, spat out the jewel, and the king got his jewel. Rabbi Ben Yai went to a place. They brought before him, they said, we don't have, our well is not providing enough water. We can't give the water on our fields. He said, maybe you're not taking Maisa. They said, you can be a guarantor for us. And they did, and then everything was okay. Rabbi Ben Yai went to a meeting to learn Torah, and the river Ginai was there, and the people couldn't cross over it. He said to the river, what are you doing? You're stopping me from going to the learning. And then the river split. And Rabbi Ben Yai, then the Talmidim said, can we pass by as well? He said, if you know that you've never upset anyone's covered, then you can cross over and nothing bad will happen. Okay, Rabbi Bar was the one. Rabbi once wanted to allow Shemitah because it was a year of famine. He wanted to allow Shemitah, so Rabbi Ben Yai goes to him, and Rabbi says to him, "How are the crops this year that the guy sown?" He wants to show and hint to him, "Look, everything's not growing well. We should allow Shemitah this year." Rabbi Ben Yai says, "Oh, the endives are very good." He's not agreeing. So then he says, "What about the crops?" He says, "Oh, the endives, the chicory is very good." Rabbi realized Rabbi Ben Yai is not going to agree to get rid of Shemitah that year. So then Rabbi Ben Yai asked him, he says, "Can you eat a bit? Do you want to eat a bit? Eat some food with us to this day?" So Rabbi Ben Yai, actually Rabbi asked Rabbi Ben Yai, he said, "Yeah, I'll come along." When he came, he saw some white mules there. He said, "What are you doing with these things? You're feeding all these white mules. They damage people. It could be, look, you'll never see me again from now on." He went to his town. He didn't eat with Rabbi. They told Rabbi what happened. Rabbi sends a messenger. They want to try and appease Rabbi Ben Yai. They go to his town. And then he says to them, "My people in my town, come close to me and help me." And all the town came by and they surrounded him. And the group from Rabbi couldn't get near Rabbi Ben Yai. Then they said to them, Rabbi wants to appease him. Leave him, let him go. So all the people in the town left Rabbi Ben Yai. What did he do? He says, "My children, come and be close to me." And fire came from heaven and surrounded Rabbi Ben Yai. Rabbi couldn't send his messengers there. Right? And Rabbi said, "Look, we don't see him in this world. Maybe we'll merit to see him a bit in the next world." Rabbi Chagai said the name of Shulvan Nachman. There was a story of the Chassid who dug wells for the people going by. Once his daughter was going to get married, she was drowned by the well. Everyone was saying, "What's going on?" They wanted to comfort him. He didn't have comfort. Rabbi Ben Yai went to him, wants to comfort him. No comfort. He said, "This is your piety. You don't want to take the yoke of heaven." They said, "Rabbi, this was the story. Look what happened to him. He was the one who used to dig the wells. This was what happened." They said, "How could it be? His Machabed is creator with water, and this is what happens." And sure enough, the voice went out later that actually the daughter came alive. Some say that she was caught and she managed to get free, and some say the Malach went and in the appearance of Rabbi Ben Yai and saved her. Rabbi Hanania ben Doisa was eating on a Friday night, and the table fell. He says, "What's going on? Why did the table fall?" So they said, "Well, the wife said, I did prepare things from my neighbor. I got from my neighbor Namoris. I didn't take Meiser on it." And then he remembered his Tanai. He made a Tanai on Erev Shabbos, and through that he can be Mafresh Meiseris on Shabbos. And he was Mafresh Maser from the Demai, from the spices, and then the table got up of its own accord. Reb Tarafon was eating, and again the table fell down. He said to his wife, "What's going on?" So she said, "Well, I borrowed an axe from a neighbor. I thought it was tahar. I made taharas with it, but I didn't put it in the mikveh beforehand." Okay, the Gemara now brings a brisa. If you buy wine from Haaretz to mix it with murius, which is this fish stew, which comes from fish being salted, and wine for aluntis and kidneys to make pulses and grinds and techinin, you're chayav Demai, even though it's going to be in a mixture, which is potter from Demai, but you're chayav Demai, because at the time when you buy them, they're not yet in a mixture. And we don't have to tell you that, of course, the din is the chayav if it's vadai, but they themselves, these mixtures, if you buy it from Haaretz after it's been mixed, it's potter from Demai. There was no gezerah on Demai in such a case. Now, what are we talking about? If according to Rabbi, holds wine mixed up with these mixtures is not batel with haruvas, it improves the taste, then even demai should be chayav. And according to Rav Shimon, who holds that wine mixed with murias is batel, then even vadai should be patel. So he says we're talking about Rabbi, and the reason is this is one of the things the leniencies with demai. This murias exemption is one of the colours they were lenient with demai, even though it's not batel with haruvas. There's no gezer on this mixture of demai. Okay, if you buy wine for an eye ointment or flour to make like a bandage of some kind, then you're potter from demai, chai with vadai. But they themselves, if you buy like this ointment, whatever it is, which has already been prepared, you are potter from demai. Now here, with this ointment and the bandage, we say you buy it after it's prepared, it's potter from vadai. And whereas with the murias, we say that they're only potter, if you buy it after it's been prepared, you're potter from demai, but not vadai. So what's the difference? The difference is, when it's this bandage thing, on its body it becomes botel. The wine is not botel until after it's absorbed in your body, right? By the time when you eat it, you're getting the benefit. The tam is not botel in the mixture, therefore if it's tevel, it's chayav maestros. Whereas this eye ointment, when you put it already in the mixture, it's already botel at that point, and therefore you're potter from maestering it, even if it's tevel vada. Now we've also learned that this ointment of avodah zarah, which has got yain nesach mixed up, then you definitely can't get benefit from it. So that's different. It says you don't have anything from idolatry, right? Nothing at all. Now, what's the difference between yain nesach mixed in this ointment, which is also not batel, and sediments of a guy, which are permitted? Because the sediments of a guy, should they not be forbidden to get benefit? So the Gemara says the shmorim, it depends if they're dried out. There's no issur or no avodah zarah, right? When they're dried out, the issur doesn't apply. Okay. I think we will stop here for today, Rabbi.